Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey guys, welcome back to Halfway to Dead. Jen here. Guess who we interviewed today? We interviewed Lori Montry. Lori is a somatic healer practitioner, author of You're Not the Problem, and creator of the Freedom Framework, a nervous system-based roadmap for sustainable behavior change. She helps people like us who feel stuck in stress, overwhelm, and self-sabotage understand the survival patterns driving their choices so they can build the safety, capacity, and clarity needed to take the aligned action in every area of life. Today, we're talking about that darn nervous system again and how she needs regulated. We go over her freedom framework, which is amazing. And it tells you how you build the foundation and build up from that so that we can, cruise to our authentic selves, which is our goal. She shares her story. I share a little bit of mine here and there. And we talk about how we are stuck in survival mode, how we need to get out of it, and what some of the most important ways on a daily basis we can do that. So if you're sitting in it right now, you're feeling all the feels, you need to get regulated, this is going to be a great episode for you. All right, so let's get in there. Because guess what? Like Lori says, you don't need another self-help book. You need more self-resourcing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hey, Lori, thanks for being here today.
Jen, thank you not only for having me today. I'm so excited to spend time with you. But also for the space that you have created in the world for all of us.
Yeah.
Your show is so meaningful. And, as I've gotten to know it over the last couple of months, you just, have me smiling and cheering and thankful for the work that you do.
Good. And I think you're the perfect guest because we talk a lot about doing the work, right?
Exactly.
We gotta do the work here in midlife. Because none of us get to this age unscathed. Am I right? We all have stuff from childhood on that's really still causing us some problems. So I wanted to start with what brought you to this point, like your own journey of how you got to where you realized that you were unregulated.
Yeah. I love thinking about realizing that I was unregulated, because I lived about the first 40 years of my life without having any idea that that's what was going on for me. So, I write about all of this kind of extensively in my book, You're Not the Problem. But in a nutshell, I had a lot of rough things like so many of us do, in early childhood. And I did what every other human on the planet does, which is adapt to my environment and my circumstances. So I developed ways of seeing the world, ways of thinking, ways of feeling, ways of nervous system states and behaviors that helped me make sense of my circumstances and navigate them.
Yeah, I want everyone listening just to connect with you because you've been through some stuff. I mean, you don't have to share all the things, but what was going on for you that probably our listeners right now have had going on possibly too? What was happening?
And as I name some of those things, I want to be very careful because the feedback that I often get is, oh man, my life wasn't anything like that. I had it great compared to you. So I don't have the excuses for my behaviors. And I just want to name that while I will definitely share my own personal circumstances, you had your own too. And I don't care if it was not getting invited to the kindergarten birthday party or, it's something as seemingly small as that impacted you. So I just want to hold space for everyone to have their own story, even if it doesn't look like mine.
Yes, I hear that a lot too, that people don't feel like their problems are valid compared to huge problems. Because I had some big stuff too, but also a lot of little stuff that caused trouble. I talk to a lot of people where it's like, well, I wasn't abused, but they still have some stuff, right? I mean, we all do because big or small, our nervous system stores it, right? Because our nervous system didn't know that it could be worse. It just knows it's bad, right?
Exactly. And I'll say, if you broke your leg, you wouldn't not go to have it treated because, on the way there, you see somebody with 2 broken legs or a broken leg and a broken arm. So you wouldn't turn around and be like, oh, well, my leg isn't as bad as whatever they're going through. So, I'm not going to treat it.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. That's why my framework really looks more towards the experiences and how you adapted, as opposed to, does my experience meet some imaginary definition of trauma? We all have our experiences.
Yeah. Because even if you don't have those big T traumas,
Yeah, of
a
course.
whole bowl full of little T's will do the same damage.
Absolutely. Which is so often the case. But I was born into a family who was already overwhelmed by the time I arrived on the scene. I was the sixth out of seven children. My mother was completely overwhelmed and very dysregulated. And frankly, I was too much. I really, sent things over the proverbial edge here, and I
Yeah.
was a burden in a lot of ways. And I felt that. I knew it. And from all of the cues, with the rage at my needs, all the things. And I developed adapted ways of relating to that. And then
Yeah.
for a period of time, when I was 4 years old, I was sexually abused and had nowhere to go, nowhere safe to go. And that was, hugely impactful. Not only the abuse itself, but not having anywhere safe to go and to help me understand and process. And
Yeah.
so, again, I learned adapted ways of being. I
Yep. You went
learned,
into
okay,
survival mode.
yes,
Yeah.
100%,
Yep.
100%. And so, I saw myself the way I perceived the world. I was a burden. And if I keep my needs tucked away, if I can perfect myself, then those things will help me be safe. So I became an overachiever, a people pleaser,
Yep.
someone who denied my own needs. And really just my internal landscape was a very scary, chaotic place. And so I learned how to essentially shut down from my internal experience, which is emotional eating, in
Mhm.
order to provide the relief, the company, the love and care that I needed. And so I went on to build an entire life based on these adaptations. And so, in some ways, you might look from the outside and look at this life that I created and think, she's doing great. I graduated from the Harvard Law School and practiced law for a number of years. I was married. I have 6 beautiful children, the big house, like everything looked pretty convincing. And inside, I was a wreck, and I did not like myself at all. I continued to battle with food in my body in a variety of ways. And I not only did I wasn't living a life that was authentic, I didn't even know what that would look like. I didn't know who I was. And up until about 40, I never even thought to ask that question. I was
Mm.
just trying to get through the day, survive the day with the tools that I had. And it was very, very painful.
And you were
And
busy. It sounds like you were very busy. And this is what we do. We bury it, right?
you
And
bury
then we
it.
get very, very busy with the kids, the career, just all the things. So
Mhm,
we don't even think about authenticity. Like that word
mhm,
is even
mhm.
part of our vocabulary, right?
Right, right.
And then I think that's why that's so important. Would you say that's why you're finding a lot of women hitting midlife starting to do this work?
Mhm, mhm.
Because things are becoming more clear. Why do you think that is? What's your take on why midlife really starts pushing this on us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. And for any individual, it's probably a combination. I'll take myself, for example,
Yeah.
and here I am. I'm on this track and I'm using these adapted ways of being for so long because I think they're going to give me the life that I want, the peace that I want, the satisfaction, right? And I keep turning to them over and over and keep finding myself no closer to the peace and fulfillment that I want. And I think that as we approach mid age, we have been doing it so long that we come to a realization like this isn't working. We
Yeah.
can't fool ourselves anymore because I have done it for so long without result that we start to look at it and be like, maybe this is not the way as
Yes.
that evidence builds.
And this is exactly what we talk about on the show. This is typically for a lot of my listeners, you guys know what these moments are for you because this
Mm,
is often when we start heading into this spiritual awakening also, because this
yeah.
is part of it, right? Part of this finding our authentic self. What's our purpose? How do we finish this life strong? How do we change all the things we've been doing? Because like you said, they're not working. I got to
Yeah.
get back on the path I planned on being on, right?
Mhm. And I also think hormonally too, the changes that we experience in midlife kind of lend us more towards being internal. The
Yes.
falling estrogen helps us, maybe we're not quite as focused on everyone
No.
else
Yeah.
and can, start to turn that lens inward a little bit. And, there's just something about the pain and getting really exhausted of being in pain all the time. So I think there's a lot of things, but those are some of the big ones
Yeah.
that I
I talk to a lot of women who are like, it's the health problems, right?
absolutely.
Because now our body, we're full. We're full to the rim with this pain, with this trauma, with all the things we've been burying. And then our body goes, whoa, like, how am I going to get your attention?
Yeah.
You're going to have to get sick. So we need to get regulated. Am I right? And this is one of your specialties. So you have this freedom framework. Would I be right in assuming this book feels like part one, like phase one of the whole journey that we're embarking on when we do this?
1,000%. Yes. The first book is really that foundational piece that we need in order to do anything else. So I think of it like our life is this beautiful mansion that we want to build now. And this starting point, a well-regulated nervous system, a healthy nervous system, is the rock solid concrete basement upon which we can build everything else. When we go after our behavior or, I want this thing tomorrow, we're trying to build a second floor balcony without anything underneath it. And that's why we try so hard and we feel like we fail again and again. And we try to convince ourselves, oh, I can't do it. It's not for me. I must be really broken. It's just that we haven't started with the foundational piece that is so essential. And that is the nervous system.
And I think a lot of people do skip that and we
We
can't
don't
do
know
it.
about it.
We
Who
don't
who
even
has
get it.
taught us about it that we would even know? It's out
Um,
there, our mindset work and our motivation. And that's what we've been taught our whole lives. And we've been missing this essentially.
Yeah. And you approach this from, because you're a somatic healing practitioner. So just for my listeners, tell us exactly what that means.
Yeah. So it just recognizes the importance of the body and the nervous system in the work that we're doing. It recognizes that if your body doesn't feel safe, you don't have access to the parts of your brain that can form new neural pathways, new ways of thinking and feeling and being.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
even do it. You may try, you may put so much effort in, you may go to talk therapy forever. You may be doing your mantras over here. You may be doing so much and not getting anywhere. And it's
Mm.
just what we're talking about. So the
Yes.
somatic piece, it's not that we don't work with the thoughts in the mind. It's
Mhm.
that we also understand how the body plays into that and how to bring that piece as the most important piece, honestly, the compass, if you will, of
Yes.
everything.
And also, I think it's important to find someone who's trauma informed when you're doing this work. So explain that briefly too. Tell us exactly what that is and why that's so important too, to work with someone who's trauma informed.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons. One is just the kind of the understanding of why you have your current patterns. We have to be able to identify, where did I get these? Where did they originate?
Yeah.
Because if we don't pay attention to that, then we're going to be standing in a moment where we're like, I don't want to think this way. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel insecure in my relationship. I don't want to, keep turning to these coping mechanisms, etc. But without understanding what need that is providing, you're not going to be able to break those cycles. And so we have to, for origin, right? But also it's so important because when you open up and start to offer, to use the body in this work, the body is holding all of those past traumas. And
Mhm.
when you open up to it, it can be a very dysregulating experience. It can be very scary. And we can actually just stay closed to it and not be able to open to it. And so someone who is trauma informed understands this and has, the ability to not go crashing through the door and saying, we're going to heal this trauma right now. We're going to, get over it, whatever.
Oh, Lord,
They
that
know
doesn't work. Yeah.
how to meet you where you are and that stored energy.
Yes, I love it. I want to just start because I know everyone listening's like, all right, what do I do? Where do I start? Let's talk a little bit about what we were talking about earlier with how we all learn to adapt, that
Mm-hmm.
adaptation piece of it. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, as I shared in my personal example, I adapted in all of these ways, right, in order to make sense of my circumstances and
Yeah.
to navigate them. And then we go on to build a life around those, right? And
Mhm.
and we take those strategic behaviors as well. My emotional eating followed me long after, the original impetus for that behavior. It followed
Mm.
me, right, for the rest of my life until I was almost 40 years old. And so these adaptations, we think of them like, why am I such a loser? Why can't I get my crap together? And we
Mhm.
see them as ways that we're broken, as ways that we're the problem.
Yeah.
And actually, they're just a response, a brilliant response, actually,
Mhm.
to what we have experienced. And when we can see these things as adaptations, as opposed to fault and brokenness,
Right.
then we can look at, how do I adapt again? Right? What conditions do I need in order to adapt again? This time towards my truth, my wholeness, my sense of well-being. And then the work is about that.
It sounds like what I'm hearing you say is we've got to go back. We have to identify these things, right? What are these survival mode adaptations that I did, which again aren't bad, right? They
No,
got us
no.
where we are today. We
Yeah.
love those things that happened. We just now have to appreciate them, thank them, send them on their way,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
get some fresh new ways of doing things, right? And
Yes,
that's easier said than
exactly.
done. That isn't a one-day process, everybody listening. No, don't we wish? Okay, so let's walk through this process because 'cause you've got this freedom framework, which I love because it's 3 phases,
Hmm.
correct?
Hmm.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about each phase. And again, you guys, this book, You're Not the Problem, which I love that title, right? Like, because we do all think we're the problem. It must be me. And listen, sometimes we do have to do some adjusting. We do have to look in the mirror, is what I'm saying, right? But not because we're a problem, but because we need to rework some things,
Yes.
right? We need to rework some things.
Yeah. It's not permission to not have, self-awareness and responsibility.
Yeah.
It's just an understanding that your behavior makes sense. And so
Yeah.
you get to look at it and say, do I like this? Is this serving me? Is this authentic? Is this within my value system, my integrity? And if the answer is no, then you get to, assume the responsibility and adapt again. But it's not about, shirking responsibility or giving permission. Well, that's just how I am. So I can do whatever I want. Yeah.
No, that worked for a while, didn't it? Yeah.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
but
Yeah.
that won't keep working when we get to this point. So the
Yeah.
so the foundation for your methodology,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about it because I feel like you do some parts work, some IFS type stuff in there?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So the foundation, we can think about the framework being like that example of our house. And the first phase is this beautiful nervous system regulation, the basement, the rock solid concrete basement. And we ask the question, what do we need to adapt again? What do we need within our systems in order to build this solid foundation? And it's three things. It's safety, capacity, and energy. And when I talk about energy, I'm talking about at the mitochondrial level, at the cellular level, whether you are producing energy in the form of ATP or whether your cells, from being stuck in survival mode for so long, are in what's known as cell danger response. The best example of cell danger response is when we get the flu, right? We have
Yes.
no energy. We are on the couch. We don't want anything to do with anybody or anything, right? And that's a good, healthy thing because we know we're compromised. So it keeps us there on the couch recovering, right? But when
Yes.
we've lived in survival mode for so long, our cells, it's the same exact thing. And maybe we find ourselves lacking any motivation, barely able to get through the day, exhausted, even though, we slept 10 hours and basically just kind of checked out. And that can be, and the cellular energy is definitely a part of why we might be feeling that way.
Yeah. No, this is science-based. I mean, really.
Absolutely.
Like, this is a very well-rounded thing we're talking about, you guys. There is a literal, down to your cellular level, like you said, your mitochondria, reason you feel this way,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another part of the somatic approach, is that we have to understand the impact on our biology that all of those years of living in survival mode has taken on us. And, there are many examples of how the body reacts and functions differently as a result of our experiences. So these three pieces, safety, capacity, and energy, are the essential pieces for us to have the regulation and to feel resourced enough, right? I call it switching from our adapted self to our expansive self. Our
Yes.
expansive self has what we need to then go on to phase 2, which we could think of as this first level of our mansion. And in phase 2, it's called becoming you. It's figuring out, oh my gosh, I've lived this my whole life not knowing who I was.
This is that
Yes.
authenticity piece.
Yes. And all of the old limiting beliefs. I'm a burden. Nothing ever works out for me. I can't find love. I'm not successful. Whatever the beliefs are. And we get to identify them and figure out what's true for us. And once we do that, it's not as simple as identifying the truth, right? Now we have to live it. We have to actually live according to our new beliefs as opposed to our adapted beliefs.
Yes, boy. Yeah. And that's the goal, right? To be embodied and live authentically just in daily life. And it becomes, I'm going to assume through this process, it becomes less of a struggle and more of just an embodiment. Like
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're feeling your intuition. I'm going to assume more and going with that gut. Yeah.
exactly. You feel that clarity, like you have a compass and you know where you're headed. It's kind of like, okay, now I know where my North Star is and I can steer by that. I don't have to arrive there, right now, but I know how to be steered. And once we have that piece, once we know who we are and what we want,
Yeah.
now it's time to own it, right? You've done the work, now go build the life. And the reason why we need that as part of the framework is because, you're going to discover some dreams, some ways that life isn't fulfilling, some things that need to change, something, and it can be incredibly overwhelming, Your life hasn't been organized around these things. So how do we take the actual action steps to start to organize your life around your truth? Now you have the energy that you need, the motivation, the clarity, you have everything you need. Now,
Yeah.
what are the steps actually going to look like so that you can bring that into being?
So these feel like action steps really for manifesting the life you've been wanting. This is what this feels like, right? This whole thing, honestly, your whole freedom program feels very much like setting the coursework for manifestation. There's a million different definitions and ways you can say this stuff. But basically, like we talk about, we're wanting to finish our life strong. And so we've got to make some changes, right? We got to make some changes right now. I think we all need a process because I often say we can do this on our own, but why? But why? Right? When there are people who've walked the path, know the steps that are going to probably work well for you, why not why not go that direction?
Yeah, my own journey, like one of those corn mazes around Halloween time.
Oh, yeah.
Like just so nope, turn around that way. Nope, dead end, and it took a long time. And I think partly because there's not a lot of, places where we can go and get all the different pieces and the different modalities that, you know, and this understanding of the foundational piece. And so, yeah, this is fast track because it is all of the pieces under one roof.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some tools that you use that you recommend to help start regulating your nervous system?
Yeah. And when I talk about nervous system regulation, I always want to be really clear because I think there's a lot of confusion out there about nervous system regulation. I think a lot of the information out there makes it almost like a hack, like do this tool, regulate your nervous system, and then everything's going to be okay.
Now, the biohacking, right? Is there a supplement for this, Lori?
Right.
Yeah. No.
Exactly. Do this breathing tool and and yes, there are tools and yes, there are things that support your nervous system. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is have the right perception of the nervous system. It's actually a compass, rather than something that we need to control. We need to understand it and let it inform us as to what we need. So it's almost like our caretaker in some ways, right? As you were talking about it earlier when you said sometimes the body has to produce an illness in order to get our attention. Hey, you have to stop giving yourself away every day. You have to stop running yourself ragged in order to, prove your worth in the world or whatever. But if we don't get that message, then the body has to speak louder and louder, right? And the answer is not to, take an aspirin. The answer is to fix the underlying cause, right? So when we turn to the nervous system, we're turning to it to understand what's going on for me and what do I really need. And your nervous system serves as the barometer. So we don't just cover it up and say, calm down, right? We say, interesting. What are you telling me? What do I need to know here?
Yeah. So give a real life example real quick. So what would an example be of a moment where you would think and stop and say, ooh, did I act that way? Would it be if you overreact about something? Or are you feeling it in your body first? Are you stopping when you're feeling like an emotion you're not loving? Whether that's fear, anger, sadness. Are we trying to just stop and get to the core of it first? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So it's kind of a spectrum, right? Where we may be starting from the standpoint of we're not even really aware that that's happening or that I'm reacting to something. We're kind of, unfortunately, a lot of times in the very beginning, we're kind of oblivious, right? We're not connected enough to even know, whoa, that was a reaction. Let me get curious about it, right? So we may have to start from the standpoint of saying, okay, well, let's take a look at life, because your life circumstances are telling you, what your behaviors are, certainly, but what you're feeling and what you're thinking and the state of your nervous system. So sometimes we have to start there and start to look for the clues that help us understand what is going on. What are my patterns? What are my adaptations? Because adaptations don't feel like adaptations. They just feel like truth. They feel like who we are. And so any individual may have the awareness like, whoa, that's me people pleasing again, right? But for a lot of people, it's like, no, I have to say yes. You don't understand. Like it's not a choice, right? So I understand that this might be kind of confusing. Okay, so where do I start? How do I bring all of this conversation into something practical, meaningful that I can walk away with and do something with today? And so this is something obviously that I talk about a lot. And so a while back, I created a resource called Your Nervous System is Talking, Learning to Listen. I would love to offer that. It's one of the free resources on my website, LoriMontry.com, and then it's /guide. But what it is it's a check-in process that you do for yourself throughout the day, 5 times a day. You stop and you answer a handful of questions. So regardless of where you are on that spectrum, where I was talking about, I may have some awareness, I may have no awareness. This can be a resource for everyone. And you start by checking in and rating your system on my graduated cylinder model from 1 to 10. And it explains the nervous system and how to kind of tell where you are on the graduated cylinder. And then you start to gather some information. What's going on in my environment? What's going on in my body? And pausing to notice, we realize, oh my gosh, there's a constant pit in my belly that I've been ignoring for 50 years. Or why are my fists clenched? Oh, wow, I didn't even notice.
Or your jaw. I realized I'm a jaw clencher. It took me a long time to realize. Just stop and go, wait, why is my jaw clenched right now? Right? Because I don't feel like I'm in an extra stressful situation, but boy, it's clenched. Yeah. No, that was one for me, a pattern, the jaw clenching, the pit in my stomach.
Yeah. And these are informing your nervous system all the time that something's not okay. So you may be having a great day. Everything is fine, but your patterned tension that you've been holding for so long is feeding your nervous system cues of danger. And so you're staying activated, even though you can't identify anything outside of you that's going on to make you feel that way. And that's how we bring one of the ways, right? We're just constantly bringing the past along with us. And so recognizing these things and getting curious about them We learn a lot of information about our nervous system, and it will tell us what we need. And that's both inside the moment needs and outside the moment needs. So what I mean by that is you may have that tension in your jaw. And so you can immediately respond in a caring, loving way by doing a practice, a somatic practice, such as, just a massage or letting your face rest in your hand or, many of the other hundreds of tools that we have available. But you also ask the question, where is this tension coming from? And as you get to know it and you understand, it comes from the fact that I don't speak my truth. I'm always, pushing down what I really need and what I really want to say. And so then you get to meet that need as well. So we have these tools and practices that help take the edge off and help our system regain, that resourcefulness that we're looking for. But we also get the bigger picture that tells us what needs to change about my life.
So what I'm hearing, it really sounds like one of the first steps is reacquainting ourselves with ourselves because we don't know who our authentic self is. So we almost sounds like we need to start getting the habit of we check in with all of our loved ones our whole life. We make sure everything's good, everyone's fine all day long. So it sounds like we have to do that for ourselves now. We have to check in several times a day and say, how am I feeling? What's going on with my body today? What's happening? Because we are actually getting to know ourselves on a very basic level at the beginning, right? Because we don't know who we are. And then through this process, you're going to get to a point where these things become more obvious, right? And then that's when you're going to really utilize these somatic practices, right? And at some point, you're probably going to have to go dig into that childhood because you're going to say, why do I feel like that?
Yeah.
And then it sounds like that's when you're going to get into some parts work, right? You're going to meet your different parts and figure out when this happened, how you adapted. And then it sounds like eventually we're going to reframe it, right? We're going to say, no, I'm going to change the way I do that now. I'm going to change the way I react when my body feels like that. Is that essentially kind of what we're saying?
Yeah. I want to live not according to my adapted ways of being anymore. I want to live according to my expansive, authentic ways of being. Who would I have been if I had, my needs met? If I didn't have those experiences, who would I have been? And then we get to build a life around that.
I was thinking about how we have to reframe things. This is really one of the hardest parts for me. I'll just speak personally, finding a way to reframe things in a new way. And, I spent a lot of my life in that numbness. And you said something in there about how your numbness wasn't weakness. It was your nervous system trying to save you. And again, that brings it back to we were in survival mode, right? And that's not a bad thing because we survived. Like an animal out in the wild, they got to do some things to survive. Okay. So we did what we had to do. And I appreciate that about myself. And I appreciate a lot of my parts that had to come about to help me do that. Right. Like you said, the overachiever, the humor. There's a lot of different parts we all got going on. And I appreciate those, but then we have to figure out how to work with them in a different way.
Yes.
Essentially, that's part of what Lori's helping everyone do here is we have to breaking habits. Would that be right, Lori?
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. And I think one of the pieces about reframing that is often missed, the way I practice it is we have these parts, as you've said, my people pleasing part, right? Or whoever it is. And if I want her to be willing to think and feel and act differently, I have to make her feel safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
So if we think about people pleasing, why is she people pleasing? Because she thinks that she has to be loved, to be worthy. So in the reframe, if we just say, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done with that, whatever. And if this part is not feeling secure, she's like, nope, we're going to die essentially if we
what our body thinks. It sounds dramatic, but it really does.
It really does. Because your survival brain doesn't operate with language or in story. It is sensation and feeling. So she's not differentiating between saying no to someone and being chased by a tiger. It's the same in our system. And so we have to tend to her. We have to have a relationship with her. where she trusts us. And when we build that relationship and she trusts us slowly at her speed, that belief can start to soften and she's more and more willing to try on something new. But, often we're like the self-sabotager. We're adversarial, and that makes her more nervous and clench the steering wheel of life even harder.
Yeah.
And then we're frustrated because nothing's changing. And we think it's self-sabotage, but it's not.
Yeah. I think this safety is a really, really big part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And when we hear safety, I know people are listening thinking, are we talking about physical safety, mental safety? Yeah, all the safeties. Because yes, if you had childhood traumas, you absolutely don't feel safe in situations. But also, it doesn't, like you said, have to be something that big. It could be you were the unpopular kid in school. And now you're making all the decisions to say yes because you just want everybody to like you. Right? Like, so again, there's big traumas that cause us to be unsafe, but also just a lot of little things that make us feel unsafe. So is there one practice people could start today to start trying to feel safer? I think it's a big job to make our body and our parts feel safe. And yes, we have all these somatic practices and we've got breath work and we've got tapping, we've got all these things. But is there something day to day that you recommend we do to just really start letting our inner child essentially know we're safe?
Yeah, absolutely. It's checking in.
Yeah.
We cannot feel safe if we aren't connected to our body.
Yeah.
It's just something that we have to have. And it makes sense because if our body is our GPS, right? If we have to get in the car and we have an appointment somewhere across town, we have no idea where it is, set the GPS and then turn the volume off and put a blanket over it, right? That's what it feels like when we're trying to drive through life without our compass. And so being in our body, being aware of our body's sensations is a prerequisite for safety. And so the practice, the check-ins are a great way to begin feeling into that, noticing, how are you right now?
Because I think we always are hoping someone will check in with us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't we sit around sometimes as midlife women and we think like, why has no one checked on me? Why is no one asking me like, are you okay? Do you need anything? Because that's what we've been doing our whole lives. So we want that check-in. And what also just came through for me is if you are trying to, bring that safety back and you do have any kind of childhood trauma, I was imagining it like this. If little me was sitting in a corner in a room, all covered up in a little blanket, right? A nervous damn wreck. If I never come and check on her, what is she thinking? She's thinking, of course nobody cares. They don't even check on me.
That's right.
Versus if I think about, if I go check on little Jen a few times a day and I see what she needs and how she needs nurtured, even just checking in, she's like, whoa, like, I exist. Like you actually care that I'm sitting in this corner. And so sometimes if you think about things differently like that, I feel like then you start understanding this nervous system regulation.
100%. Yes.
Because I will hear, check in with myself. What the hell do you mean? You know what I mean? Like what? I'm supposed to stop and be like, how am I feeling? It feels a little bit cheesy sometimes. What is she saying? Check in. But no, even just stopping for a minute, being like, oh, how do I feel? Like my neck hurts. What do I need? I'm hungry. What's a choice I want to make right now that's like good for me, but also is going to make me feel good? Right?
Yeah,
like changing our relationship with food, with people around us. Do I need a bit more sleep tonight? Damn, I'm tired. Right?
Right. Well, if you're never checking in, you don't even know you're tired. So that's why, in the check-in practice, there's a few things specifically and worksheets that you can, use to kind of check off, because you're right. When I say, if I were just to say, check in with yourself, nobody's going to follow up on that. No one's going to do anything, right?
Yeah, we don't know what you mean.
Exactly right.
I do this script. Okay, you guys, you're going to have to get a hold of this. And so here's the deal. So Lori, you are a somatic healing practitioner. Do you work one-on-one with people?
The programs are already in place for kind of walking through the framework. I work in groups as well as one-on-one. One of the groups that I recently created, while I was writing the book, I kept having this voice that said, books like this that ask something of people, they have a tendency to collect dust on the nightstand. They just do. We're already overwhelmed and overloaded. And so, having something else to do and doing it consistently is hard. And the work, like you said, and this channel is all about the work. And so I said, I have to provide some kind of additional support for my readers. I know that the book by itself, it's an essential piece, but it needs more. And so we have what I call the reader circle. And that's a place where we meet every week to stay engaged, to stay committed, to get support, to get questions answered, and just continue, to show up for the work in a way that feels supported and guided.
You have a little quiz that people can take on your website too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was going through just my initial phases of kind of opening up and asking these questions, I didn't yet think that I deserved help. And I certainly was not in a place where I could tell another human about the things I did because I was so ashamed, the way I used food, the way I, showed up in the world. So I relied on people's free resources. And so I have built the website kind of with that in mind to kind of give back to all the people who provided things
Yeah.
that helped me so much. So there's a lot on there. And the quiz is a great starting point as well because it can give you some clues. Am I dysregulated? Am I more in the sympathetic in that activated super stress mode? Or am I somebody who might be above that in the functional freeze where I'm kind of shut down and unable to really, be active in my life?
Yeah. Okay. So you've got the quiz, so we can just start getting in there to even figure out what the heck's going on. Right. So share at the beginning of this whole thing. Then you've got where you can start knowing how to check in with yourself, right? A process for that, this whole freedom framework. So you're definitely going to want to get a hold of that. But it sounds like if this is resonating with you, you might want to be in one of these groups, either the larger one, just to kind of dip your toe in and see what's going on, or maybe you're ready to jump in and get this smaller mastermind group going. And again, this isn't an overnight process. Like she just said, you said it's a 6 months, right? Which, listen, my opinion is we need a lot more than 6 months, but that's a real good start.
It's a great, and that's phase one, right? When we're going to build that basement.
Oh God, we got to get the base going first. Yeah. Because if we try and hop up to the second floor of our mansion, no, it's going to all fall to shreds. Yeah.
Again and again.
There, I've got it. Yeah. That's a little bit of what we talk about as spiritual bypassing around here, Lori. And you forget you've got to do all the foundational work first. No, that never works. Do you have anything new coming up? I mean, I've got all the links in there. And obviously, you guys got it going on this book. I'm sure you're working on book 2 and 3 because people are going to need those when they get done with the first one.
And 4.
Damn.
Yeah. 4 is going to be so fun because 4 is all about, okay, now you've built this relationship with yourself, right?
Yes.
This beautiful place where you know yourself, you care about you understand your needs, you're committed to building a life for yourself, right? And you have this caring place for your parts, then they can come and get cared for. And now we're going to take that whole framework and we're going to extend it to your relationship.
Damn. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. To our relationships.
But also, it is my belief that once you do the work on yourself, when you make the changes, when you become embodied, you figure out who you are authentically. I believe that energy ripples out already. And I think your relationships will get better regardless. But I love that once you know that you're fully like feeling authentic and embodied, then you can start an actual practice towards making those relationships better. I think they'll get better anyway, just because you're getting better.
They absolutely do, 1000%. And, sometimes some of our relationships go away too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the case for me. I did get divorced after, 20 years and figured out who I was. I didn't fit there. And that's scary to think about, I'm sure, for a lot of people. But authenticity is not something that is always going to be comfortable.
It's more than likely not going to be comfortable. I mean, just plan on that, right? Especially at the beginning. But when you're in it and you're having to make those decisions become authentic, no, it's not going to feel great. We talk about that all the time here too, Lori. It's not going to feel great. And some of your relationships will get better and some you'll shake them right off the tree and they'll be gone. Yeah. But now you have room for other relationships, for authenticity.
Right.
Yeah, for
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And now, having found someone who, just is such a beautiful match for my authentic version of me and for us to have built not just, a relationship, but but a sacred place, that takes care of us both. And that is available for us, for all of us.
I love that. Hey, how quick are these books coming out, Lori? How quick you clicking these out? Because
I'm
we're all going to
working.
be waiting now.
One thing that I love about me is I practice what I preach. So I have not put any kind of timeline on myself. I have not, I know exactly how much I can work, but what good would my advice be if I was over here, violating all of the things that I'm teaching,
Your
right?
whole framework. Yeah.
You would not want to read my books. Trust me. If that's
No.
what I was doing, you wouldn't
Yeah.
want
You're
to.
not just throwing this into AI and giving it to us. This is from her lived
Okay.
experience, you guys.
From
She knows.
lived experience.
This is your
Yes. Yes.
which is
Every day.
every damn day. Yes. And us midlife women, we know exactly what she's talking about. We all have different lives and different things going on, but essentially, I feel like we're all very much the same.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's what I was saying about the group. It's so lovely when you arrive there and in the group, you're like, whoa, wow, you get me.
Yeah. Like, oh, wait, I'm not the only one who thought like that, made those good decisions and bad decisions. Like, yeah,
Right.
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 I'm amongst my people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that really helps with the discomfort that you named,
Mm.
when I am uncomfortable and bringing it to the group and bringing it to each other and to hold that with you
Yeah.
is wonderful.
My
Yeah.
gosh. Okay. And then once you get in there, you're going to learn all these practices and all of these amazing things. I love it. If this resonates with you, go to the show notes. You've got to click the links. Like I said, we present you with all of these amazing people. And if this feels like it's pulling at you right now, like I know I need to regulate my nervous system, but I have no idea how. I want to be my authentic self. We throw on that authentic self quite a bit these days too. It's kind of a little buzzword. And essentially a lot of us don't even know what that means. So if you're at the point where you want to do that work, you're ready to start figuring this out, and I know you are, that's why you're listening today, then start clicking around on those links down there and check out what Lori has to offer for you, because this may be what you've been looking for, right, Lori?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just take one step today, right? You don't have to,
Just go on, do the quiz. Just do the
yeah,
quiz
do the
today, or
quiz.
just figure out how to check in with yourself. Promise yourself for the next week, you're going to check in with yourself 4 or 5 times a day,
Mhm.
right? You're
Yep,
going to check on
exactly.
your little self, your little whatever feels dysregulated, and then do the next step. There's no real timeline on that. As long as you're moving forward, that's it. That's all that's required. There's
Yeah.
nothing more than that required. That's my
Right, right.
opinion on that.
And that idea, oh, I'll get to it when things settle down. Things won't settle down.
Nothing's settling down. You need to do this to settle down. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, come on,
Exactly.
guys. Yeah, your life will never get less crazy at all. Or you could be the opposite. If you are at home right now, not able to even get out of bed very often, you're having trouble taking a shower, you're having trouble getting your shit together. You don't need to wait for that to get better either. Start now, right? Start doing the quiz. Start checking in from your bed. If that's as far as you can get today, then that's as far as you can get. Check in from there.
1,000%. That's really, something that I name in the book, because it's such a painful place to be in that functional freeze, where all of the survival energy of the sympathetic system is still there, but now you've lost the ability to respond to it. So it feels like having a foot on both the gas and the brake at the same time. I was there for a long time. So yeah, I know that it's a painful place. So everything is created for that scenario as well.
All right, guys, as usual, we got more work to do.
Mhm.
We got to do the work. But
More
listen,
discovery. More
we're going to
discovery.
come out on the other side and we're going to be amazing. And we will be finishing this life strong. Period. End of story. Whether we live one more day or 50 more years, we will finish this strong. And this is just one of those steps. So I'm glad I brought Lori to you guys today. We're going to grab this book because guess what? You're not the problem. No one told you you're not the problem, as her book is called. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lori. This is good. This is really good timing for me because I'm sitting in some stuff right now too. So I love that we talked about this today. It feels like synchronicity for me.
Yeah.
This all came together today. And I bet you guys listening are thinking the same thing. This feels like a really good moment to hear this right now. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Lori. This has been amazing.
Yeah. Same. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for today and for everything.
Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now, I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, Could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.